Hi, my name is Mark Bernard. I'm a monetary economist. In this video, I want to talk about Russia and the economic transformation that could be, that probably won't be, and why. What you need to understand about Russian society is that there's a couple currents that are deeply embedded. It has nothing to do with the Russian people per se. It's more about a cultural climate that has been fostered over the centuries. I like to start off with a quote by Thaddeus Kosciuszko. Kosciuszko. How do you say that Polish name? Koszt. Think of Koszt. It's like bone in Polish and uszko. So you say Kosciuszko. That's a good mnemonic. He said that humanity, if you're for and fighting for humanity, then you are truly human. That's what it means to be truly human. And he said, I will fight for any cause that really serves humanity and elevates this liberty in humanity. And certainly, of course, you know, West Point was founded and the bridge after him over the Hudson River, etc. He was a great fighter for this liberty and freedom. It didn't matter what country. He was not a nationalist. He was for humanity. That is the attitude that Russians need to take. But can they? And let's take a look at Star Trek. We've got the original series, an episode called The Return of the Archons. The Archons was a starship that disappeared over 100 years ago, and Kirk and Spock, they returned to the planet. It seemed to be a non-evolving system, and it was ruled by a computer named Landu. At first, you don't know Landu's name. You thought he was just the leader of Russia. But it's a great metaphor because it kept everybody in check with technology. Everybody was greeting each other, peace, brother, you know, the will of Landru. And if anybody acted a little bit different, then everybody would say, you're not of the body. And the lawgivers, which are like the FSB, would have to either assimilate them or eliminate them. So it's a great metaphor to look at because it deals with free will. And Kirk makes a bold statement that if you don't have creativity in a society, you don't have this free will to act and to make good choices and bad choices, but you take responsibility for that, then it's a society that is not evolving and the body dies. He ultimately destroys the computer, unplugs it at the end with such arguments. Now, the thing is, it's a 6,000-year-old computer. This society is not an evolving society. It's stagnant. And I can see that in the Russian society. Almost for 1,000 years, you had boyars, you had serfs, you had communists, but then you had the workers. And then now you have this new Russian president. I call him the Tsar because I don't want to mention his name too much. It's all the same. It's a non-evolving society, not in the same sense that America is evolving, not in the same sense that Poland's transforming, not in the same sense that Denmark's transforming. So it's a huge problem. This Star Trek episode, Return of the Archons, is very interesting, and I can recommend you watch it as a social commentary on non-evolving societies. In fact, Kirk breaks the Prime Directive. He says it's not a violation to interfere because that only applies to societies that are evolving. Which gets me to my point. How long would it take Russian society as it exists today to evolve into a free, democratic, transparent, peaceful society which the individuals are fighting for not just nationalism or xenophobia, but for all of humanity? We certainly see it a manifest in Russians that escape, and immediately many of them rise to the occasions. But what about the society as a whole? They've been propagandized for so many years. I can speak about my experiences in Poland. The effect was almost immediate because Poles are liberty-loving people. As soon as they got that freedom in the 90s, the 80s and the 90s, and Solidarność and Jan Paul II, immediately they started to set up shop, be entrepreneurs. They started to strive for this freedom. The transformation happened almost overnight. And I was here in 2004 when they transformed to the EU. They connected to the EU. It accelerated after that. It was part of their cultural DNA. It has nothing to do with the individual DNA. I'm talking about the collective unconsciousness. What about Denmark? Can Russia go from Russia to Denmark relatively fast? Or from Poland to modern Poland? The answer is no. I don't see Russia transforming from Russian society, no matter what geopolitical events occur, to a Denmark where everybody's happy and free and transparent and anti-corruption and fighting for humanity. It's just not going to happen because, I'm not in grammar school. Let's be real here. And, I'm not talking as an academic economist. I'm just somebody who's been around the block. I'm not looking for a piece of the action. I'm just telling you the way it is. They're not going to go from Russia to Denmark in terms of societal transformation, even if Landu is unplugged. And Landu, the problem is every czar, there's another one after and after. It doesn't even matter if Landu or the czar even exists or he's alive. Some people question that even. It's just the idea that they're plugged in and using technological surveillance and FSB to check everybody until the society is nothing more than, in the words of Captain Kirk, kind of like sheep-like obedience. And it's unfortunate because that's not part of the Russian individual DNA. I've seen it. When they come to the West, they transform, become creative, great people. But in Russia, you got a company like Yandex, and the Tsar pulled the plug on that and just took it over and made it an arm of the government, right? So what can happen? What can transform them? They've got two options I see. The option one is an evolution from Russia to Denmark type secular humanism in economic society, or a Polish transformation, which incorporates religion and freedom and economic freedom. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen because of what I've mentioned regarding their history. It's just too ingrained in their history to have that immediate. What about religion? Religion is a radical transformation of your life. Problem is, that's one of the first things the Soviets and the new Tsar has programmed out of this collective unconsciousness of Russian society. They are not religious people. I think it's 4% go to church every week. And by my definition of religion, the Tsar and Patriarch Cyril are atheists. And my definition is somebody's walking the walk. Like Gandhi said, you are your religion. If you're not walking the walk, then it's not a radical transformation of your life. That's what I'm talking about. And it's not going to happen. I know the Catholic Church, and I'm Catholic, believes in this consecration or evangelicals maybe, put a billion Bibles there and maybe, who knows, maybe we'd have to hope from above, but I don't see it. So I don't see any kind of radical transformation from a spiritual sense, replacing the Tsar with something greater and ideals of humanity. And I don't see them evolving into a Denmark, right? Or a Poland. I see them, you replace the head and the next head comes along and then society doesn't change. I see that this could go on indefinitely unless it's defeated economically. That's the only way I see it. We continue the sanctions. We continue economic pressure and tighten the noose on every country that is involved in trade with Russia, and continue to tighten the sanctions and don't let up on that. Then it's going to hurt people's pockets. When you take away somebody's livelihood, when you take away where it really hurts for them to pay the bills, and then you're going to see Russia go down. Oh, by the way, I see the ruble crashing again. It was like in the 80s, 90, about, if you go ruble to dollar 0.009 or 89. That's probably because they can't sell oil now to their, bros in Hungary or wherever. But you take away the economics of it, it will transform relatively quickly. But to do that, the West have to have resolve. So the point of this video is just to meditate and be real. Russia, no matter what happens at the top, they're not going to have a kumbaya moment and all hold their hands and say, now we are free and we're going to transform a society. Because society's collective unconsciousness evolve over centuries and centuries. If it's already existent, like in the Scandinavian secular humanism or in the Polish just love for liberty, it can happen. But neither of those currents are strongly manifest in the Russia that I know and I have studied, unfortunately. Because like I said, there's great individuals in all society. So we have to apply the sanctions. We have to apply the sanctions harder, much harder than we have done. And we have to dismantle the economic mechanism because they can't do it alone, and no society and economy can do it through, just building up walls and self-sustaining, especially a society that has crushed individual expression and freedom and liberty. My name is Mark Bernard. I'm a monetary economist. Have a great day. Thank you very much.